Hey everybody, it's the Grizz here. How's everybody doing? I see some people are trying glassing. So there's a few questions popped up too as well. So I thought, well, I'll try and do a quick, I won't do an hour-long one like the chap did on the other YouTube one that Drama alluded to. So again, this is through you YouTube viewers. This is for a request by DIYmolds.com. So if you're wondering why I'm talking to some of the members on the forum there, answering some questions about fiberglassing. So I've done a couple videos before, but I don't know if I've done one quite like this. So I'll try and answer some questions and get them out of the way. First off, Drama, when I seen with regards to like safety equipment when you're using resin, so you can do a couple things. Like make sure you try and, like, I'm lucky I can open my door big. I would never do it in my house because it just smells to high heaven, right? I'm lucky I can open my door or be in a well-ventilated area, maybe with a fan behind you, like I have, blowing outwards. You're in sort of a tight space there, Drama, but that's cool. Like, that's what you got to work with. That's what you got to work with. So the issue I had was you put this on. Now this little guy will do nothing for you to keep you from the harmful elements of the fiberglass. A lot of guys, like next door I've got a boat guy, and they don't use their masks as much as they should. But when I do like multiples. I'll do 4 or 5 pieces at a time, so I'm doing a few hours at a shot, and especially in the winter when the doors are closed and that. So you need to get a proper respirator, and you need to get one. Can you see that, the 3M number there? I'm not going to, it's a NIOSH mask, 6003. It's a funny thing, when you go to 3M, if you go to somebody who sells these, you say, hey, I need something that'll protect me from resin, from fiberglass resin and the KP catalyst. What they're funny is they won't come out and tell you it's a certain number. They get you to point on a page, a list of items, and you point to it and tell them what it is, and they'll go get. I think it's a liability issue with them. Even on the phone, they're a bit funny too. They don't like to say, okay, yeah, you need this one. You have to sort of pick it, because I think if you get sick, then they're off the hook and it was your decision. So you like that finger thing going on there? So anyway, really, if you're going to do a lot, you know, that piece that you did is okay. I mean, you didn't need a real mask like this, but if you're doing multiples in a closed area in the wintertime, I really advise you to get one of these, or I think you can get pretty sick from that stuff. And there's long-term effects from years of using this stuff as well too. So just protect yourselves, everybody. And of course, gloves, either nitrile or latex, are handy. So I'm going to get the big one out of the way right away here before I get into all the glassing. This has been coming up for years and years and years and years and years. Is wax. Okay, and Vaseline. We've talked about it before. Guns has talked about it. Guns has done some demos. I know it's sort of a thing in the industry that don't use Vaseline because it's petroleum based and it'll destroy your latex. Here's the wax that I use. It's a fiberglass separating parting paste. And if you read on the back, the very first thing it says, where is it now? Of course, I can't read the spot there, but it's made from petroleum distillates, right? So it's the same thing. If you research petroleum distillates, it's a huge, there's so many different kinds. I mean, it's in Vaseline, it's in chapstick, you know, that you put on your lips. It's in makeup, it's in a million things. It's in stuff you use to clean your car or your tires. There's different kinds, different grades, different. Guns did a great video where he had Vaseline on a rubber mold, latex mold, and he put it away for 3 years and never touched it, still in the fiberglass shell, like that one over there. And he took it out and it was fine. So I use this, I've been using it for years, and I've had no issues with it, no problems. The thing is, you're using it quick. You're rubbing a couple of coats on, you're putting your glass on. The most it's on is for a day or two. And then at the end you take it and I wash it in warm soapy water. So you've taken it all off. So I think that brief period of time, I think where it was, some people used to use years ago motor oil for a release. in molds, and some people were putting it in rubber, and it just eats it. I think it would take years if you were using this sort of stuff, and if you used Vaseline every time you used a mold, I think it's going to break it down. But I think for the little bit that we're doing here, I think it's okay. But this is just my opinion, right? I mean, there's a couple guys I watch on YouTube, some weightlifting guys, and they say it's only advice. It's only advice, and you can do whatever the F you want to do, okay? Whatever you want to do and feel comfortable, that's what you want to do. But here's another alternative, right? Is a clear wax. It's carnauba paste wax. There's no petroleum in it at all. So you can use that instead of this if you're not comfortable with it. Like I know JB and Tuscany, we've talked before too, they say don't use petroleum products, but I don't think for a short period of time that this is a bad thing. So, but if you want to stay away from it, use carnauba wax, okay? It's the same thing. So now we've got the elephant out of the room with that one. We'll go on with a little demo there. So, Drama, I've never seen a milky colored resin like that. I mean, it's just different, right? That's okay. That's cool. To me, that I'll show you a little bit later why I'd be hesitant to use one that had that color in it. But again, that's just me. So anyway, I'm gonna have your mask ready. You get some gloves on. You have your project lined up beside you there. So what you're gonna do first is 2 coats of wax, right? So I just got a cloth in here. You give your piece, let's just pretend that the lid here, this is, so you're just gonna put it on a thin layer on the top. You're gonna leave it for 10 or 15 minutes. It dries pretty quick. Then you're gonna go back, give it a second coat, okay? Then, after that second coat's dry, now here's another thing I discovered with talking to, when Glenn was here, when Tuscany, oh, is that his name? When Tuscany was here, is PVA, or parting film, in New Zealand, and I think in Great Britain, I'm not too sure, correct me if I'm wrong, PVA is referred to as glue, like a wood glue or a white glue. That's what PVA is. PVA to us is this parting film. So you apply it. I don't have my little brush here. Oh. So I just usually pour some in a little cup, some PVA, and it's quite liquidy, and just a thin coat on top. Actually, I'll show you quick. So then just pretending that the top of that can again. So shake your brush off. You just want to film on it. You don't want big puddles of it. And then you're just going to go across just a little layer. And you don't want big puddles. Then you're just going to leave it. And give it, I put a little fan on it usually, just get it dry off. And you can go back 15, 20 minutes later and put a second coat. So 2 coats of wax, 2 coats of the parting film. Then you're ready to roll. Then you're getting ready. So what I do is the fellow used a paint tray, which is cool. Lots of people do that. I just put tin foil down. I just put a couple pieces of tin foil down. Sometimes even on the whole end of a table I'll put down for wetting, and just tape it right onto the table. Okay. So then you're going to get your resin. So this is what my resin looks like. Okay. It's blue. I won't stick my finger in there yet. Oh, here, I'll get it. So you can sort of see the viscosity of it there. So you can see how it hangs. It still runs, but it totally coats the stick like that. It's not too watery, and it's clear, and it's blue. So I buy mine in, this is in a rubber bucket because I borrowed some from next door there. So if you've never, I'm just going to give you this quick tip. Because I'm so used to it in kitchens, we get everything comes in big buckets like this when I was a chef days there, is when you get a huge container like this and you're pouring, everybody likes to do, they turn it, you take the lid off, and you pour this way, and what happens, it comes shooting out and you miss your little cup and it goes everywhere. These were designed for a purpose, and that is you put the spout on the other side away from you, and then you lean it towards you this way, and it comes out nice and slow, and you tip it, and you don't get a big mess. So that's the thing, and it's the same when you've got acetone or a paint thinner or something, same thing. They're designed to have this up at the top when you open a fresh can and pour, so it doesn't come out gushing out. Or you can turn it this way and go from the top of the can this way down. But because you know what happens, everybody's done it. You do this and you open it, you start to pour, and blurp, it all comes flying out and goes all over your hand. And so just turn the spout away from you and pour from the top side. It's much easier. So anyway, enough of that baloney, and we move on back to the resin again. So there's the resin. Okay, I'll just sit this down. I was kind of wondering how I do this. I'm just winging this here. So now I'm not going to, so you can hear me. I'm gonna keep my mask off, but I'm just gonna show you what I do. Okay, so this is gonna take a few minutes. So I've got my brush sitting in acetone because it's an old brush. And you can see it gets some nurbles and narbles on there, little pieces of strand. That's not a big deal. You can pull those off later. Never, ever, ever thin your resin down with acetone. Just don't do it, okay? So I think somewhere I've written down before, I've shown what the measurements are. This is a 16-ounce cup of resin, and this is a 16-ounce cup of coffee, which is really important. So the resin is, for 16 ounces, you're gonna use 1.5 teaspoons for 16 ounces, okay, of the hardener. Now, what I'm gonna, there's a little caveat there, because it's been so stinking hot here, and my shop gets hot. This is the morning right now. It's 10 o'clock. It's getting pretty warm already, but in the afternoon I did some glassing and I cut way back. If you're doing by percentages, no less than 0.5%, or else what's going to happen, it's not going to set. So okay, I'm just going to show you. Here's a teaspoon and a half, the hardener, right? And now we want to stir it really well, right? You want to stir it really good. So this is the boring part. You want me to sing? I'll do the girl from Ipanema. There we go. So now you stir this little guy up really good. And the reason I like doing the tin foil on the table is because, instead of a paint tray, is because I can do a lot of pieces at one time. And I'll just show you that quick. So I want to, on a fresh piece of tin foil like this, I just want to put a couple dabs of resin down just to hold your piece down. So I'm just going to sacrifice this stuff for the sake of a demo here. So there we go. Now I start just wetting it down. You can see how much I'm putting on. I hope you can see that. I'll just check my camera there. So I'll just do these two pieces here. Okay, so now it's good. So what I do now is, now you'd go to your model. So if you had the, just hang on one sec. So I just did this one yesterday. So say I had my model there. It's got the 2 coats of wax. It's got 2 coats of PVA. Now I'm going to go with my resin and I'm going to paint the entire model, all the rubber. I'm going to paint with resin as well, right? Give it not big pools or anything, just a nice coat all over the whole thing. Then by the time you've come back, this has started to work, and you can see how loose the piece is as compared to a new piece, and it gets all loose. So then you could start, I'm not going to do it because this one's all clean, but now you start laying it on, okay? So, and what I always like to do is you're always overlapping. So say you put your first piece on, does that show up, right? And then you put, say, your next piece on. I always overlap a piece going in a different direction, or whatever, you can go willing. So, and then you just dab it. You dab it on your piece. Now I want to show you why the milky one what I probably wouldn't prefer it is, see these air bubbles in here? I hope you can see that. See, there's air bubbles. You want to push those out. And when you have a clear product that you can see the air bubbles, if you have an opaque or a solid color one, you're gonna not be able to see where all those bubbles are. Some people like to put color in because they can see where they have to overlap or where they've missed a piece or what. I like to be able to see. So you can see now, here I'm just gonna pop my other glove off. you can see now that there's air free. There's no air bubbles trapped inside, or say there's a little one there. Then you just roll it out to the side, right? So I always do, for most pieces, I'll do two, on a medium side, like on a small one, I do 2 layers. On these ones, it's more like, by the time you overlap, you're probably getting about 3 layers, almost 3.5, because you're overlapping all the time, right? And then I like to go back, and on the seams, I pre-cut myself. These strips. I know the fella in that other video he made that kind of concoction there with it, and he put it on with a putty knife. I know I wouldn't like that. It just seems too time consuming. So then what I do is I just lay these in and reinforce the seams again. One more time. I like to make my seams nice and thick, because you're putting your bolts and screws or whatever you're putting through there. So I'll always do, so it's about 3.5 layers on here because of overlap, right? But in real sense, it's only 2. So you say you're allowing 2 pieces, but because of the overlap, it's going to be like 3.5. And then I go back and I do 1, sometimes 2 times more around with the seams, okay? And again, just tap, tap, tap with your brush. Oops, now it's stuck. Tap, tap, tap with your brush, and you're good. You'll get all the air bubbles out, and it's good. In the summertime, this stuff is going to set up really quick. It's going to be pretty fast for you. Here, I'm just going to get rid of. So when you're done, of course, you take your brush and put it back into your acetone, okay, just to keep your brush fresh. If I'm doing multiple pieces, if I have a table full, I'll do a piece, and then I'll throw my brush in the acetone, set myself up for another pour, and go. What I do then, in that case, is I'd have about 6 of these all pre-lined up already, not with the catalyst in it, but just with the resin in it. So I'm just pulling them off the table and going on to the next one, okay? So, let me just see here. If I can tilt this up a little bit. Might be able to see my pretty face in a minute. Scare you all. So I'll just put the lid on here. Okay, so like I said, with the wetting on the table, so why I prefer this is I can get about 6 pieces on here. Sometimes I do even bigger sections. I can get about 10 pieces all pre-wet, and then it's so fast. You're on the model, tap, 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 and I can finish quite quickly. One piece will be done in a couple of minutes. I can be done this section, right? So now my piece is like this one. Just finished it yesterday. It's really unusual. I usually don't glass at this time of year, but I just thought for a change I could catch up on some stuff. Sorry about the shaking. So okay, here's your pieces. Sorry I don't have one to show you. I think I've talked about it. You can see in some of my past videos. When I do my seams is with, I use cardboard, right, and the green tape. Tuscany and I belong to the green tape club, right? So, and you PVA and wax those as well too. So once my piece is starting to kick, when I feel it it's getting nice and warm, and you can feel it's getting a little bit hot, that's the time I like to go. You have to be careful though. If you go too early, you can damage your fiberglass. But as it's starting to kick, if you get a nice tap and it's still nice and warm, run a putty knife or something around those seams. It really helps you. It's gonna really help you loosen that up after and get that off. And then when mine's almost set and it's still a little bit warm is when I try to work it off a little bit. I don't like to wait till it's all set, because sometimes you can run into big problems. So when it's a little bit warm, I'll give it a couple air shots, or I'll just really gently pull. But you have to be careful, because you'll get some breakage in your fiberglass and the resin, and then you'll have to go back and repair that after. So anyway, that's what I like to take it off. So say your piece is all done, like this guy, he's all done and ready to trim. Now, what I like to do, and I think the fellow did the same thing, I like to clamp up all the little seams. As you can see, everything's got clamp, clamp, clamp. This is when I want to drill and put my bolts in. So for me, I use a 1/4 inch bolt with a 1/4 inch wing nut. So you get a nice fresh drill bit. They last quite a while, actually. You'll know when it's starting to get dull. So I usually like to go for where the rubber seams are first. So I'd go into here. I'd go into here. So keep in mind you're trimming some of the excess off. So you know, keep yourself inside, but you don't want to come too close into the model, right? So this is where you sort of take a look at it. Sometimes I'll take a pencil or a felt pen and I'll just put a dot where you think you want to put your holes, and then away you go. Now, why I do it now, and I think the gentleman in the other video described it too, is what happens is if you don't have these clamped off tight and it's not tight, and you've already trimmed your piece, and then you start drilling some hole, you get some movement. Sometimes you get a little bit of movement in the shell, and then what happens is you do your whole thing, drill everything out, and then your holes don't line up. And then you got a big problem on your hands, and you're re-drilling, and you've got unsightly holes. I mean, most people don't see your mold anyway, but it's just a pride thing, I guess. So I like to clamp it all up. I like to drill a few, like say if there's 1, 2, or 3 on here, I'd put a bolt through one just to hold it. Then I'd move on to the other pieces and bolt it all. Then that's when I go back and I trim, okay? And I've seen what you were using there, Drama. I'll just show you, doggone it, where did I put that now? Mine is right over here. Sorry, don't have to go too far. So this is what I use. It's a little diamond cutter that fits on the end of a Dremel, and it goes like a hot damn. Like, it'll cut through this stuff like butter. I know the fella had a reciprocating saw in the video there, and that thing was bouncing around like so. This thing is really nice. It goes really fast. You can really rip through your model really quick, trim it up, and then after it's all trimmed up, you're going to want to give it a quick sand. So I've got either my electric sander or I've got an air sander over there with a 60 grit paper on it, and then you want to run over all the edges, around all your seams, get all the little bird, because these little suckers will stab you. And take a look, sometimes you'll have little porcupines, little sticker outers on here as well, okay? And some I'll just hit that quick with the sander as well too, just to get those off. So I hope that wasn't too speedy. Actually, that was 22 minutes. Crap, that's long. Okay, I hope I didn't bore everybody, and if there's more questions after this, I'd be happy to do another video. Thanks guys, thanks everybody for watching. Talk to you later, bye-bye.